Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the show, Your Real Estate Today. You're with Calvin Armstrong with Norwood, Armstrong, and Stokes, and myself, the cool blues jazz player, Paul Jamison. There's some baloney for you. It's so funny when I used to fly, and you'd be flying by yourself, TJ and Trez or Calvin, and we'd be up there and I'm by myself, and in the headsets, you're waiting to hear from, air traffic control, or you're waiting to do something and you're messing around with the instruments. And at some point you start getting a little bit bored. Mm-hmm. But in your headsets, you can hear yourself talk. So, I'm at 24,000 feet, and what else is there to do? You can't be distracted. You got to keep your eyes on the instruments, because you can have an engine failure or things can happen at any minute. So you just do stuff. You do crazy stuff. So one time in the studio, Calvin, I'm in here with TJ. We're by ourselves, and I'm messing around, and I go into my captain routine. And did we not do a show intro with that thing for one of those funny things? So, we may have to bring that up every year. So I'll have to think about I'm getting ready to do some travel. So I'm going to have to think about, what those guys say. Some of them are actually funny, like when you're flying into different places, or they'll say different names, and they'll try to confuse you with different cities, and they'll do stuff, once it's already too late to do something. Have you experienced that, TJ?
No, I have to experience some funny captains for sure.
I mean,
you have to be, I guess. You're doing this, you've got a captive audience.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And now, they're high security. What's so funny is I travel a lot to Austin, Texas, and it's always funny, the captains are getting age on them like I am. And so a lot of times the bladder is not going to make it the whole trip. So, they take the drink cart, and they take it and they like block the bathroom and the aisle with the drink cart, thinking that's going to stop a terrorist from taking over the airplane with the drink cart, and two stewardesses with their arms crossed. It's a good technique, but it's really kind of funny. But I always notice when I get on a plane, and it sounds so silly because, after you turn 50, the wise part of that says never pass a bathroom. But I know those dudes ain't going to make it, so I know it's coming. So it's always a fun laugh to see how they kind of treat security now when you do that. But anyway, it's hilarious. All right. So Calvin, let me ask you a question before we get started. Do you know now what the state tax is in California and why so many people are leaving? TJ, going to need you on this one. So what is the state tax in California right now?
I have no idea. I know it's high. I know the cost of living is high.
Yeah. Take a guess what it is.
Oh, I don't even know. 17%.
I was going to say 19%.
17%.
Lucky guess.
Around here, it's 7 something, I think. 7 point something. That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
It is.
So, I just was watching the news the other day, and their newest proposal is a referendum for every African American who has lived there for, I believe, a period of 12 or 13 years. Per African American that is a resident that has lived there for 13 years, for $5 million each. $5 million each. How do you afford that? For reparations. How do you afford that? $5 million each. I don't know how you do it. Maybe they should just start betting on the North Carolina lottery. What was it a while ago? 1.2 billion. That might fund some of it. Did you win that, TJ?
I'm still here, so no.
Oh, did you win it, Calvin?
I didn't, unfortunately.
Darn. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about some legal stuff. What do you say? All right. So Calvin is an attorney and partner with Norwood, Armstrong, and Stokes. Obviously, his name's on the door. So wire fraud is crazy right now, is it not?
Yeah, it's been an ongoing issue in the industry. What we've been seeing is we've seen a lot of real estate agents actually get themselves in trouble by being involved in the trading back and forth of wiring instructions from our firm. So it's something that we're extremely sensitive to it, and we're advising the agents that we work with just really not to be involved in it. They need to educate their clients up front and then pull themselves out of that part of the transaction. And let the client or the buyer work directly with the law firm. We'll send wiring instructions directly to the buyer. We always tell them that they need to independently verify our wiring instructions. That means looking up the phone number for our firm independently. So do a Google search or however you search the internet, find our phone number and call and verify the wiring instructions prior to sending even $1. The other thing that we do is we never change our wiring instructions. They're the same because that's a common area where these cyber, I guess, criminals, they try to interject themselves and they'll say last minute, here's new wiring instructions. It's really urgent that you send your money. Go do it now. So we tell people all the time, it's on every email we send. It's on our wiring instructions. These will not change. If you get an email saying they've changed, contact us immediately. There's someone's email involved in the transaction that's been compromised, and we need to figure out who that is so we can protect everybody involved. And then on the back side of the transaction, with the seller side, we don't accept any wiring instructions via email. They have to be signed, handwritten on a notarized document, and we need the original in our office so that we can verify that when we send a wire out, we know the person is going to get their money.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are so many, they're getting pretty good, the scams, right? They're getting pretty good, to the point where they'll duplicate your entire email message, your logo, your email signatures, everything to try to dupe you, or mine, right?
We've had that happen to us. And I think the term that our IP people used was called spoofing. And basically, there's nothing we can do to stop those emails. They go out, they copy our signature, they pose as us, and it's very frustrating from our side. But we're paying attention. We're trying to keep up with the industry and correct all that to make sure that us or anyone that we work with on the buyer, seller, agent side isn't a victim of wire fraud.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really smart. I'm really glad you brought that up because it's getting crazier and crazier. Also, a question I get a lot, especially in the buying and selling of property, is who has to sign? Who has to sign to buy? Who has to sign to sell?
So the old tagline, and I'm sure you've heard it a few thousand times in your lifetime, is 1 to buy, 2 to sell. And it seems simple on its face, but there's a few little nuances with it. A couple of areas where people get confused is if they bought a property prior to marriage and then they got married and want to sell it while they are married, their new spouse needs to sign that deed. And people often get confused by that because they bought the property outside the marriage, so they don't think the spouse has any right to it. And that's simply not the case. Another thing that people often get confused on is the difference between are separated and divorced. In the real estate world, if you're separated from your spouse, but you're not divorced, you're still married. And the time that becomes a problem is when there's been a couple that's been separated for 10, 15, 20 years. And we got to go down and track down the spouse to get them to sign a deed. And you can imagine how much fun that is for everybody involved.
Yeah, I bet that's no fun. But when we come back from the break, Calvin, what I want to talk about too is what happens if it's in a business. And when we come back from break, we're going to do that with Calvin, Armstrong, Norwood, Armstrong, and Stokes, and myself, Paul Jamison, from the Jamison family of real estate companies here in the WBT studios this beautiful February day. We'll be right back. News Talk 1110 99.3 WBT.